Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The National Security Minister defends the Minister administration's last 2 years in office.
The Works Minister said power outages are not expected to decrease anytime soon.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, a former Defence Force officer was today charged with the murder of a fellow Marine at Government House early Sunday morning. Giorgio Bain tells us there were several dramatic exchanges between the families of the victim and the accused.
It was an emotionally charged scene here outside the Nassau Street Court between families as the Defence Force officer accused of killing another Defence Force officer early Sunday morning at Government House was charged. Officers of the Central Detective Unit brought 35-year-old Javon Seymour to the magistrate's court just before noon on Friday under heavy police guard. Seymour was quickly ushered into court number 9 to face charges before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt. The courtroom was packed with Seymour's family members and family members of fallen Petty Officer Philip Popal. Seymour stood before Ferguson Pratt as she charged him with the murder of Petty Officer Philip Popal and attempted murder of Kelvin Hanna and Ellis Ramming. Seymour was represented by attorney Murillo DeSeal. Seymour was denied bail and remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until he returns to court on June 20th for the presentation of a voluntary bill of indictment. Ferguson Pratt asked the officers in the court to allow Seymour to speak with his family members who were present. A few minutes into speaking with his family, Seymour asked the magistrate if he could say something to the family members of Petty Officer Philip Popal. Popal's family members immediately stormed out of the courtroom, stating that he had nothing to say to them.
No. That is so wrong. No.
Outside of court, emotions ran high as family members exchanged words. Officers were forced to separate the families as tempers flared. Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Assistant Commissioner of Police Paul Roll was named Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police according to Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson. The appointment is effective from April 1st, 2019. In a letter to Royal Bahamas Police Force officers, Ferguson said Governor General Dame Marguerite Pinling, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister and after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition, approved the appointment of Roll to act as deputy. Opposition Leader Philip Davis has since stated that he was not consulted on the appointment. The letter is dated May 2nd. Roll joined the Royal Bahamas Police Force in 1983. He served as head of the Central Detective Unit, the commandant of the Police Training Academy, and as head of the Anti-Corruption Branch. He replaces Emmerich Seymour. With the second anniversary of Free National Movement's crushing election defeat of the former Progressive Liberal Party just days away, National Security Minister Marvin Dames defending the Minister administration's performance in office. Dames mounted the passionate defense while he was a guest on our TV's On the Record with Jerome Sawyer on Thursday night, where he at times clashed with fellow guest PLP Vice Chairman Obi Roberts. Jasmine Brown has the details in this report.
There was arguing.
You are opening the floodgates to allow foreigners to come in to take jobs from the
They will not take jobs from within. See, there again, you go with no factual basis.
Shouting.
We out of time. We are out of
That's
time.
why you opposition.
We are out
Free
of
National
time.
Corrupt government.
And intense debate.
Anyone, hold on, no, let me talk.
I'd like to know.
Anyone that stands up against corruption is your enemy. And that speaks volumes.
Your
party's
your
enemy.
colleague in the House Assembly, Frederick McElpine, who's from the Free National Movement, not just the PLP, sir.
Okay.
He also, when you had a heated exchange in the House Assembly and had to be comforted and taken into the back by one of your colleagues.
You can sit here.
That's what he said.
And speak falsehoods.
That is on TV, sir.
Someone had to take me in a row. That's falsehood. I've cleared that up over and over. And McAlpine had cleared that up when he was on the show.
So the reporters, so the reporters are misleading. Frederick McAlpine was misleading.
Well, he cleared that up on a show.
Both Dames and Roberts weighed in on the Free National Movement's performance since winning the May 2017 general election by a landslide. Dames intensely defended the Minnis-led government, saying there have been many highlights, including what he termed economic successes.
We would have just released certainly a 9-month report. And in that report, some of the highlights certainly include that we have reduced the deficit over that period by some $130 million. And during the third quarter, would have racked up some $40 million surplus.
When pressed by Roberts on the issue, Dames insisted the country was on a downslide when it was inherited by the F&M government.
Had the people not voted this government in, we could have very possibly been a failed state. All right? That's how bad it was. And looking at it from the outside was bad. But when we took over, the damage was triple. Would we imagine?
Dames also touched on the F&M's anti-corruption agenda and calls for his resignation following the Frank Smith bribery and extortion trial and the PLP's repeated calls for his resignation.
My integrity precedes me, and I often say to all those who would criticize, because that's a minority, because I have been stopped by people all over this country saying that they understand the game. All right? All right? So my reputation precedes me. I did nothing wrong. And I will stand up anywhere and speak that. All right? All right? I will not come this far in my career to do something outlandish.
Has it affected your ability?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. Because we've done nothing wrong. It hasn't affected. And we remain resolute and dealing with corruption. For far too long, this country has been on a trajectory, all right, where a small few has benefited, and then they speak as though, right, they're for the masses.
Now, while Dames did list everything he says the Minnis administration did right, he did admit that there were some mistakes along the way, as he highlighted that controversial O-Ban deal. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Litigants in the ongoing Shantytown lawsuit, their attorneys and lawyers for the Attorney General's office were back in court this morning, where it was revealed a cabinet minister and Ministry of Works employee have both given sworn affidavits on the case. Attorneys representing 177 Shantytown residents on New Providence, Dawson Malone and Crispin Hall, telling the court that they had just yesterday received sworn affidavits from Labour Minister and head of the Shantytown Action Task Force, Dion Folks, and Ministry of Public Works Building Control Officer Craig Delancey. Last year, the government gave residents of most shantytowns on New Providence until August 10th to leave before it moved to begin demolition in the communities. On August 4th, the Supreme Court issued an injunction preventing the demolition of the shantytowns on New Providence. The injunction was granted a day after Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson granted leave for a judicial review of the government's actions regarding shantytowns. In court today, Malone also filed 2 applications before Supreme Court Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson. The first application amended the application for leave to apply for judicial review, and application 2 amended the originating notice of motion for judicial review. Attorney Malone telling the court that the applications amount to adding a ground in relation to the alleged failure to consult and ground 7 of their argument that relates to legitimate expectation. All parties are expected back in court on June 6th for a hearing for an application for discovery. As patches of power outages continue to impact BPL consumers, Works Minister Desmond Bannister says until Bahamas Power and Light gets rid of its nearly 50-year-old equipment, the company will continue to experience challenges. Gillian Gray reports.
The Works Minister said power outages should be expected, at least until the power generation company gets rid of all old equipment.
We're going to continue to have outages, and I keep telling the Bahamian people this. We're going to continue to have outages in a number of areas because over the years, nobody did anything to improve the facilities. When you see these generators start coming into New Providence now, and you go and look at Clifton, look at the date that those generators at Ward Clifton were installed. in the 1970s, before you were born.
The latest in several weeks of power outages took place on Tuesday when an engine tripped at the company's Blue Hills power plant, causing blackouts in several areas of New Providence. Works Minister Desmond Bannister said the company cannot keep running those old generators and said with new equipment they will be able to improve the services they render to the public.
If you have a car, that's a 1975 car, and you're driving it every day on the road, and you're driving it 24 hours a day, then you're going to expect you're going to have some challenges. When these Wärtsilä generators come in, and we get them in place, you're going to see a marked improvement in New Providence. You're going to see LED lights in our streets over the next few months, and then you're going to see improvement in all the islands.
On Tuesday evening, BPL via its Facebook page reported that Abaco was experiencing an island-wide power outage. Power was not fully restored until Wednesday afternoon. With many residents expressing their frustration under BPL's post, the Works Minister responded to concerns about power generation on the island and apologized for outages.
Any outage is a concern. And in Abaco, there is a special concern. But I think the people in Abaco know what they had in the past, where they had power going off constantly, and what they have now. There's been such an improvement that the Member of Parliament for South Abaco actually wrote to BPL and thanked them about the management that we put in there to make a difference. Power in Abaco is reliability of power in Abaco is at least 98% improved.
Bannister added that challenges on all family islands will be a thing of the past by the end of his tenure.
Bimini is a particular concern for me, and we're going to address the challenges in Bimini. I met with some of the stakeholders in Bimini yesterday, and we're going to address the challenges in Bimini one by one. We're going to address all these islands. By the time I leave office, don't look for any of those challenges to be major challenges.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come on our news, government in talks with an American research university as it aims to raise the standards of healthcare facilities in the country. Stay tuned.